All right, it's Thursday. Welcome to David Divine Broadcasted. How you guys doing? We're going to say hi to Buff, Cashew, Unidentified, who's up on the panel, and Christy, that's in the stream so far. If you guys got some questions for the panel, please ask in chat. And we'll go ahead and introduce. This is going to be a fun show. Backstage was off the hook. I'm sure it's going to carry right on into the show here. So here we go. We're going to start off. We're going to introduce Thom Reed. Thom, welcome to the show.
Hey, man, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it, man.
Yeah, thanks for being here. Then we have
Absolutely.
Rhiannon Alley is next to Thom, who
Cheers.
is trying not to get elbowed by Thom. So we'll hopefully that happens. And then we have Anthony from Unidentified-S4. Anthony, good to see you.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
All right. Welcome, Buffering. Lake Ferry, good to see you. All right. Again, if you have any questions, ask in the chat and we'll get to them. Why don't you guys go ahead and talk just briefly or extensively, it's up to you, about your channels. And you have multiple channels, each of you. We'll start with you, Thom.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so we've got a couple of different channels. You know, Rhiannon and I are partners in UFO Expo. That's kind of why I'm here in St. Augustine with her this evening. You know, we're trying to get things moving here, taking over a couple more events, and one in Puerto Rico, and then, of course, Miami and North Carolina. So we've got ufoexpo.com for the events that we hold. And again, we work with Roswell as well. There you go. And so to couple that, you know, we've launched our new channel for our podcast, which is UFO Expo TV, and that's on YouTube. And again, it's going to be part of UFO Expo, which will include Rhiannon as well.
Awesome. And then Rhiannon Alley, you have your at Rhiannon Alley, as well as other channels you were telling me about on YouTube that people can. And again, all these links are in the bottom. I think I got them all in there, or a lot of them. So make sure you subscribe and watch their content. So Rhiannon, tell us about your channel.
Thanks, David. So I started Sky Tribe Mysteries, which was like a ancient civilizations background. So I was traveling all over the world, and I started just filming all the places that I was going to, because people were living through me. You know, oh, take pictures, vlog this, vlog that. We're living through you. So I started this, and I was over in Israel at the time. And then I met up with Thom briefly after that. And he's like, hey, do you want to be my event coordinator with the UFO Expo? And I said, absolutely, right up my alley. Well, then the UFO community kind of engulfed me. And now the paranormal has kind of taken shift as well. And then I got into like the Bigfoot thing. I mean, it's just coming at me at all angles, but we're doing Sky Tribe Productions. That's my newest baby. And we're doing Thom's documentary. So we're filming that now. And we're going to be doing a red carpet event. Like, it's going to be big. It's going to be on Prime. And Anthony, he's part of the documentary too. And we're going to be meeting up with Anthony in about a few weeks to continue filming. So it's exciting. We've got so many things happening.
What's the primary channel, though? What's the channel?
It's Rhiannon Alley on YouTube.
Rhiannon
so
Alley.
I'm branded as Rhiannon Alley.
Okay, so that at Rhiannon Alley is pinned in the description. Check that out, you guys. And then you guys got a lot. You got a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah,
you guys, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Real lot. Almost too much.
Almost too much. And
then, that's why we couldn't do a live show anymore. You know, we had to go to a pre-recorded type of show.
So you're not doing any live streams. It's just all pre-recorded and documentary type stuff.
Yeah, it's all going to be documentary, professionally edited, stuff for Amazon Prime, that kind of thing. And our show is going to be, we're going to be recording like several people in one day, chopping it up and then putting them up to air at a certain time every day. And we're going to be probably Wednesday at 2, I think it is.
That's awesome. Hello, LIB Mike and Bushcraft. Good to see you. Anthony, tell us a little bit about your channel.
So for the past 20 years, I was a war correspondent for CNN, and I got tired of running around, and I decided to start a little UFO channel that took off. I'm from Unidentified-S4, and we do UFOs, ghost cryptids, the whole thing. If it's unidentified or unexplained, we want to cover it. And then Thom and Rhiannon adopted me. So I'm like the son they never wanted, and they're stuck with me now. And we've been working quite extensively on Thom's and Rhiannon's new project, the Berkshire UFO incident. And I'm telling you, this project, amazing, just amazing. Rhiannon is extremely talented. Thom, extremely talented. You put the two of them together, it's an amazing dynamic duo, and I'm honored to be a part of that.
That's awesome.
Anthony. And we're actually going to be promoting and working on Anthony's film, Suburban Sasquatch.
Suburban Sasquatch. Yeah. Long Island Bigfoot and I, he had been sitting on this title, Suburban Sasquatch. And we want to cover UFOs, paranormal, and Sasquatch in Long Island in a suburban setting, and show the correlation between UFOs, ghost cryptids, and how that all fits in. And we're going to be doing a lot of puzzle piece fitting for that documentary. It's going to be a wild ride. We're going to have a great time.
That's amazing. Hello, Lake Ferry. And Christy says you are all amazing, which I have to concur with Christy.
Thank you.
Oh, so's Christy. There you go. Yeah.
Before we get anything else, Anthony, you started filming your documentary last weekend when you were with Mike, right?
Well, when I was with Mike last weekend, that was just a test to see, could we hit the trifecta in a week? Could we get paranormal activity, unidentified flying object activity, and something that we can correlate with Sasquatch activity? And throughout that week-long process at multiple locations and probably 100 hours plus worth of filming, we hit the nail on the head. So it just shows that it could be done. And then, of course, when you're filming a documentary, you're talking multiple weeks of filming. So we have a really good inkling that we're gonna hit the trifecta again, hopefully.
Right.
Bring that to you.
That's awesome. And then, of course, Rhiannon's going to help you pinpoint maybe some directions that you need to go after she watches your footage from this weekend, maybe.
Well, as a production specialist, Sky Tribe Productions and Sky Tribe Mysteries, I don't know if you had the opportunity to see any of their work, but it's all first class, first rate. There's no cutting corners. Everything's of the highest caliber quality, and that's why I choose to work with. Well, right. Of course, they're my dear friends, but as business partners, they are the cream of the crop, and everything they do will rise to the top. I'm going to coin that.
We have fun. We have fun. Yeah. We're working hard, but having fun is part of it, and we're all a really amazing team.
We all know that when it's time to work, we put our head down and we just hustle and grind until we get it right. And when it's time to hang out and unwind and party and have fun, we do that with the best of them too. But it's all business when we're working. We put friendships and relationships on hold, and we get down to the nitty gritty, which is business. So
it's exciting stuff. Now, Van Life, what's going on now? Thom, how far along is the Berkshire UFO documentary? Is that completed? Have you guys?
Oh no, we just still got a lot to do. We spent about my God. Are you familiar with what happened? The whole Berkshires, with the, how it made history and the whole bit. So the idea behind what the three of us actually discussed was that there's been so much that's been left out. The documents from the governor, the lieutenant governor, the historical society, those key people that were really involved. And so what has happened, or what happens routinely, because there's been like a dozen different half-assed documentaries about this. They, everybody wants the wow, right? If it doesn't fit in their little box, they're going to cut this out, leave this out. There are judges, historians. My father was a politician. This case went before the United Nations. My father lost his life over it. I was beaten by police officers. This was connected to the space race, the goodwill message that went to the moon. Other kids that were with me when I was beaten by cops gave testimony, to with Anthony was there and Rhiannon as well, as to how I was left in a pool of blood. And it was just, none of this stuff is ever mentioned because it's too raw, it's too hard hitting, it's gut wrenching. But what happened when you have a real encounter isn't always going to be pretty fun, and you're not going to be able to dress it up, no matter, how much you leave out or whatever. When that airs, there's people in that community that see these documentaries that purposely remove this stuff, and their jaws hit the floor. They're like, we just got, passed over again. Why don't they ever tell this story honestly? Because when you have 250 witnesses, it goes out on Channel 4 in New York City. You've got WSBS radio that broadcast it. You've got articles coming out in the papers back in the 60s about it. It's all there. So why leave it out? All you're doing is making your documentaries look weak. So it hasn't been told honestly yet. So Rihanna's like, well, let's interview the real people, those who matter, at the exact locations in their own voices. And we're not cutting it out. We're just going to let it fly.
On the anniversary of the incident that happened in September 1st, 1969. So we wanted to make sure that we were there on the anniversary in case there would happen to be maybe a reunion at the park.
Yeah. So we filmed this Linda Farrell, who was with me when I was assaulted. We filmed at the radio station. We filmed on location at the bridge. We caught a lot of paranormal activity, more so than we ever actually even imagined. And Anthony was there. He was actually staring me in the face when I got thrown 9 feet in the air. So I mean, as crazy as this sounds, but
I literally watched him get picked up sideways, like somebody grabbed his side of his pant leg and the side of his belt and like flung him sideways.
But nobody was there. Nobody was there.
And it was just he and I walking to the limo.
Yeah.
And
I wouldn't believe it if it didn't happen to me. I wouldn't even believe it myself.
You can literally see where his feet left the ground and where he landed because it was a dirt road and level graded dirt road. It's not like that he tripped over. I literally watched this guy. He got picked up and flung like some kind of poltergeist.
This area is very much like Skinwalker in a way, except it's more condensed, it has more activity. If you really get down to it, there's crafts in the air. The boxes were going off. You had 3 paranormal teams there. Some of the teams, Zach Vegas team was there. We had a team from New York, a paranormal investigative team from there. We had one from Pennsylvania, all going at the same time and doing their own thing while we were doing reenactments and interviews. So we had cameras going nonstop, and this activity was happening while we were all filming.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it's intelligent.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever's there isn't just, it's obviously probably energy, but it's intelligent. It mocked us. Oh my God. What did it say through the speaker box? It said, your equipment is stupid.
Yeah.
What did it say? One more time. What did it say?
Anthony.
No, go ahead. Your equipment is
stupid. It said through the speaker box, the REM pod, your equipment or technology is stupid.
Wow.
So whatever we were using for paranormal, EMF meters, REM pods, things like that, it said that. And then it also said, Rhiannon, danger. My name is not common. And then it also said,
Reed, his name 3 times said Reed, body. He just got flung. And the device said Reed, body.
I was bleeding. I mean, and when I hit, I rolled. I mean, I was rolling. By the time I stopped rolling, he grabbed my arm, and I'm like, what the hell was that? I mean, I was looking around thinking I got pushed because I did feel something on my right side, like a pressure. But for the most part, it was like being launched off a trampoline. It was like I was walking, and all of a sudden I stepped on like a trampoline. I mean, that's what it kind of felt like. And I literally we were looking at each other. Anthony and I were staring at one another. We were in the middle of a conversation about Gatorade on the way to a limousine in a parking lot.
Wow.
There it is. Yeah. And look how weird the marks are. It's like,
wow.
Look, back it up a little bit. Look how the marks are. They're not normal marks.
Wow.
He really got messed up.
I didn't even notice that.
But, okay, yeah, I know. But hey, Anthony, put that back up for a second. I want to show something because we're not looking at the red. Look at that. Whatever marks those, that is the strangest thing.
It looks almost like looks like stitches. Looks like stitches almost. Yeah.
Weird, right?
Yeah.
Crazy. And his back was all messed up too, like that. His arm from where he had hit the floor. He was road rashed. I mean, he got thrown with some force. It was.
Yeah, here's another thing for those that thought, maybe he fell, right? I'm 200 plus pounds, right? If I fall, I'm going down, right? I'm not being launched 9 to 10 feet in the air, and it was beyond words because I'm a little bit of a skeptic because I hear so many things. I have to, there's so many things happening at the park. I know I can tell really who's not being honest with me. I grew up with a lawyer, right? So I grew up with my father. Being able to spot things and, are things lining up? Are they exaggerating? Are they leading you here? Are they really, is there emotion in their conversation? I pretty much know who's being honest with me, who's being truthful and who's not. And when I try to tell what just happened about being thrown like this. It's difficult because I know how ridiculous it sounds, but it actually happened. There was so much power in what took place that it launched and specifically picked out me. Otherwise, Anthony would have been thrown too. Like Rhiannon said, it was intelligent. It keyed on me, and it launched me. And I'm not a small person.
Yeah, and that picture's not doing it justice. I mean, he got messed up. I mean, he really got messed up. And I was right there. And I said, from this point forward, we need cameras put in this place. This place, right. You need to have every corner of this place filmed 24/7.
And there was a lot going on. We had a bulldozer there. We had a $10,000 telescope that was just installed in the park for the film, for Rhiannon's film on my family. But it's more so like the Berkshire's UFO. If anyone who saw the show on Netflix and Unsolved Mysteries, there is no true Berkshire's UFO case. That's the name of a TV show. The actual case itself is a Thom Reed, incident which got inducted into state. The Berkshire's UFO was just the name of a show that Unsolved Mysteries decided to rebrand it, if you will, because of so many witnesses and so many people gave testimony. It was bigger than just our family. That's true. But what's really important here was our diner, which played a key part in us being inducted, because that's where all the talk was during the secret space program. So our diner had altered the natural progression of the community, which is what made this historically true. It divided the entire Berkshire County. However, the activity is actually in this park area. It's now a park. Before it was just a turnabout, on a dirt road. But this park is where this activity has been since the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, the 2000s, and there's still stuff happening there to this day. So I would say to anybody listening, if they're in the Berkshires, you go to that park at night, I would say there's probably a 80 to 90% chance you're going to experience something.
Feel something.
That's how people are getting sick. They're throwing up. Cars pulling in, trucks, their batteries go dead. They can't start. People leaving, find themselves 10 miles in the wrong direction. They get disoriented. And here's the other thing, what we've kind of discussed and discovered is that there's a power grid now, not far from the area where this happened. And there's quartz rock underground. There's the Housatonic River. There's granite stone. So there's like this vortex of energy that's there. So if there are spirits or it's multi-layered, maybe it's UFO, maybe, who knows? I'm not going to speculate at this point. I do know there's more than one thing happening there. Maybe it's picking up this power from this power grid that was recently installed, and it's amplified a lot of things, and why people are getting sick and that kind of thing, that there's these different types of spirits and energies that are now finding a power source.
They're attracted to it.
Right.
And every night that we were there, see, there's the parking lot. It's flat.
That's where he got launched. So this is just the team having a meeting, Mark D'Antonio, Kevin Titus, the radio station, people that were there back in the day. And this is the actual bridge.
This is the covered bridge from the photo.
Covered
this
bridge.
Is upstate New York, right? Upstate?
Yeah.
New York.
Yes.
No, it's not upstate New York. It's in Massachusetts.
Berkshire, Massachusetts. Forgive me.
Massachusetts.
Oh, Sheffield, Massachusetts.
Massachusetts.
Yeah.
All right.
Beautiful location.
That was one of my questions. And so now the original incident that brought you guys there happened in 1969. Is that right?
Yeah, there was one in 66, 67, and 69. So the 66 was one that we kind of kept to ourselves. That was when we first experienced something. And then 67 was seen by a lot of people, and we were involved in that one too. And actually, that's the one that the article had. We had that article with us when we were shooting. The Zuko family, the Reed family, and many others were part of that 1967 incident, but nobody really believed us, right? Because it was only seen by maybe, 15 people in the entire community. But the 1969 event took place during a holiday weekend. So all these people were out riding horses and fairs, what they have, like the parades, and 4-H had their shows, and people were sitting around having barbecue with people they didn't really know. So all these people were outside at the same time in these big groups. and it was witnessed. That's why it was witnessed by so many people, and probably why Ancient Aliens also keyed on that particular part of it.
It was over 250 people that witnessed that night on September 1st, 1969. That's massive.
Wow. And how did they explain that? They all had obviously common stories, and how
actually they didn't. And that's kind of it. And I'll tell you again, because you had the space program going there, you had the NORAD towers, the Nike missile sites, the Minman missile sites, the magnesium spill, the magnesium for the atom bomb was mined at the lime quarry right down the road. You got Pratt & Whitney, Sikorsky aircraft. You had Berkshire Dynamics, Sprague Electric, GE, and Command Aerospace, all being funded by the U.S. government through NASA, who was at the time keying in Boston, right across from MIT. So a lot of people from Hartford, Albany, New York, whatever, different parts of, Manhattan, if you will, they were coming into the Berkshires because there were all these manufacturing facilities, whether they were making capacitors, weapons, whatever it was, with this funded money through NASA from our government to beat Russia to space.
Right.
And so you couldn't talk about it. So if you saw something, if you like Dave, let's say, your brother worked for, Berkshire Dynamics, and you're talking about UFOs and you're talking to him and it gets out. Now your brother's going, hey man, you can't be doing that because I'm working for a secret space program. You can't be talking UFOs right now. And kind of that was the feel, so people discussed it within our diner, but most people didn't really talk about it. It kind of went hush, until, later on when, it was kind of over, then it started to surface again. But for a long time, kids were drawing what they saw, and it, used tape and tape it to the chalkboard, these little sketches of what they saw. There were fights on the school bus. People were coming into our diner and horse manure to try to get people to leave because there was too much chatter in there. And, kind of,
wow.
But we had the jukebox too. So people came in to listen to music because it was the only place that had music. So there were a lot of fights, and there were police reports. What's that?
Very quiet town. People just want to be kept to themselves over there. They don't want no outside world coming in.
No noise.
They don't care if the curb is crumbling. They just want it to be the way it's been
right.
forever. They don't want no outside.
Yeah, he's right. That's the way it is. They wanted, they don't want change. It doesn't look much different now than it did 50 years ago. So we moved in from Hollis, Queens, right? We're from New York. And so we moved in. We're outsiders driving a convertible Mustang. They're driving around in trucks, suspenders, and they want to be left alone. Yep. My mom's running around at 26 years old. She's looking pretty good. She's single. We shook the town up before even the UFO case even, was mentioned. We were already like, oh my God, who are those people,
City slickers.
Yeah. So then we have the UFO sightings. It was just like we were ostracized, man, right from the start. I had some tough days in school,
So go ahead, Dave.
No, I was just going to say, so you were one of the ones as a kid, right, that saw something, but it
was our case. It was our case. The whole Berkshire's UFO incident is my family's case.
Your family.
Explain it a little bit.
Yeah.
How it went down.
Yeah.
So what happened? So I was riding a horse show, 4-H horse show that day, and it was September 1st, 1969. We go back to the diner after riding, put up the chairs, do the night deposit drop, clean it up, get the store ready for morning, the restaurant, if you will. And we drove through the bridge. We're coming through the bridge. My grandmother noticed that there was a bleed of light coming through the boards of this covered bridge, what you just put up a minute ago. And so as we came back out the back side of it, there used to be like the bridge was up higher than the land, right? You had to go up a little hill. When you crossed over and went down, you had this little incline. And so you couldn't go more than 10 to 15 miles an hour. Your car would bottom out, right? So we were like a crawl, like almost like a walking speed, right? And it was dark. It was bumpy. Just a narrow little dirt road. So we weren't going more than 10 miles an hour, maybe 15 at best. And so as we come out the backside of the bridge, I'm looking at my brother and stuff and looking out the window, and I'm giving him a candy. And my grandmother just happened to turn around and say, don't give that to him, because he was too young. It was a fireball, those fireballs we used to have. You could choke and stuff like that. So don't give him that right now. We're going to bed. It was like 8:45. And I see the sphere rise up from the banks of the water. Now, I don't know if it came out of the water. I don't know where it came from, but it was rising up from the banks. And it was off to the left side. It looked like an illuminated cue ball. Okay. And it was rising really slow. And it got to be about 3 stories. and these rods of light fired from each side of it, not the bottom, they came out the side, and it shot down. So the whole thing looked like an ice cream cone, with the ice cream in the middle of a sugar cone, right?
Yeah.
And that's what it reminded me of. And then it started to move towards the car. The rods retracted, and it was going in the same direction as our car behind some trees, maybe, 20, 30 yards away from us. And then on the right side of us, there was an orange sphere, much smaller, near the water, very similar to the color of your microphone. It had that yellow, orangey kind of roll to it, like a spin to it. And it almost looked like it was moving, like a fire almost in it, and it was off to the right. And so my mother keeps going down this road a little bit. We're going home. We're like, what's this? So she goes, there's a clearing up here, something to that effect. We're going to stop at the clearing and see what this is, right? Because this wasn't the first time we had seen something. That's the other thing that people, were you scared? We had seen these before, but not this close. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And so there was a telephone pole where our utility trucks used to park, and we pulled over to that. And we were looking off to the left, waiting for this thing to, come in our direction, but we never actually saw it again. But instead, we saw this big, like, metallic, kind of UFO, typical UFO disc, right? That, it had a big fat center to it and a small top, a small bottom. We didn't see windows, landing gear. It looked like a turtle shell to me. I worded it that way. And as we had come to a stop, everything seemed like we were deep underwater, like if you've dived into a deep end of a pool. Everything's kind of muted, but you'll hear these little tapping sounds. Things resonate really loud, but everything else is silent. It was kind of like that. And then, I was looking at the dashboard. I could see the inside of the car really, really well, like almost like a dome light was on, but it wasn't, It was, this muted type of thing. I felt foggy. I don't know. It was all becoming surreal. And then all of a sudden there was like this flash of light and everything after that just kind of back to normal after this flash. So it was like there was a light on us or some kind of way when we didn't realize it, I guess, or maybe I just don't remember that part of it. But then it got super bright, but it never bothered my eyes. And then when that light, subsided, then life came back. You could hear the breeze, you could hear the crickets, you could hear a lot of frogs and that kind of thing. And then bang, that was the last thing I remember from being in the car. And I remember being in like an airplane hangar type of thing. I was grabbed by my left arm. It hurt. I was forced out a doorway. I remember this apparatus lowering from the ceiling. I remember hearing my mother's voices, bangs to my head, these packets that looked like giant raisins. And then I remember being back in the vehicle. And that's it. And then, but what's interesting about this too is like when we came to in the car because we didn't all kind of snap out of it at the same time. We came out of it within like a 3 or 4 minute period. And my grandmother was now in the driver's seat when she was earlier in the passenger seat. And when this happened, the car was running with the lights on. My grandmother swore that she had to start the car, that the ignition was off. So the ignition was off, lights were off. My grandma was now in the driver's seat when it was my mother previously that was driving. And so they were reversed. And then my brother, his head was on my knee when I finally woke up. But what had happened while I was still unresponsive was my grandmother had turned the car around and gone back to town and pulled into this restaurant called Silk's. She went for help. When she had gotten there, nobody else was responding. I was the next one to come out of it. I went in the store with her. She wanted help. She didn't really know what to ask for help for. She saw my mother later outside in front of the car. My grandmother too was all in disarray. She was, got lost behind these bikes and carriages and strollers, and she was pushing this little baby carriage and stuff, and just totally, not thinking clearly at all. And so she never actually asked to speak to the police department or anything. By the time she saw my mother outside, I think she just felt like, what do I ask for help for? Do I really try to explain this, right? So we left. But unknown to us at the time, the radio disc jockey, Thom J, had already gone back on the WSBS radio with a request from the police department to ask people on the radio, like, it used to be a tape-to-tape, a reel they used to run, to cut into that and say, listen, guys, we need some help. We're seeing or hearing that there's an object out there in the skies. People are seeing these all the way from Pittsfield to whatever. Give us an idea where it is. Call the station. So he was working with the police department to get calls to the radio station. So the next day we open up. they play the callers that had called in, and all of a sudden, our diner becomes this big hub for conversation again, because everybody was in there over breakfast when they replayed all the callers from that night.
Wow. All right, Thom, I only have about 500 questions after that. How interesting, but so you experienced being in a hangar, you said. Almost.
Yeah. It looked like an airplane hangar.
So was it everybody in the car had their own sort of trip during this? Was there like a different time slips, like maybe your grandma didn't experience so much a time slip as somebody else that was.
No, we were all on the same page from get-go.
Oh, okay. All right.
My brother and I experienced something very similar. My grandmother was the one that said she had something very personal, attention to something very, very personal to her. My mother is the one who probably blocked out the most of it. She became super religious. She got her master's in ministry. She went in that direction,
Right.
Yeah.
Wow.
My grandmother was pretty vocal about it, actually. And my brother for a long time. My brother was more vocal about it than I was, for a long time.
So you go ahead, Rhiannon. Yeah.
So you see how there's so many layers to his family and the incident. And that's why I wanted to do the documentary, because nobody else has covered all the meat, the potatoes of what happened all these years.
Right.
Especially to him. And it's just a really big impact. And even Netflix, they didn't even portray it.
They were the worst.
The way it needed to be done. You don't have to Hollywoodize this. You don't have to glamorize this. It holds its own.
Yeah.
What happened to
and everybody there knows about it. Like, we were out for drinks. Even Anthony was there. There's nobody who doesn't say we know. This is what's so crazy about this. Okay. It's not like everyone doesn't know. Not only do they know, they've experienced it. And so wherever you go, it's kind of like, we'll give you a paint a picture, right? So let's say you go to someone else who says they've had an incident or whatever, and you go to talk to people like, I don't know about that. That's nonsense. He's just, we never saw anything. Everywhere you go in and around this area, everybody. I have not in the last 15 to 20 years run into anyone who says they haven't had an experience there. So it's almost like they're part of this weirdness. It's almost like a nuts and bolts. This might hurt somebody's feelings, but it's almost like there's I do it all the time. So it's not like there's a nuts and bolts type of thing that happens in a Stephen King community. It's not like you're introducing a Stephen King moment into a very rational type of community. This is a community that is odd in itself in a lot of ways. And they not only can't, deal with, well, maybe they can, but there's this weird understanding that what's happening there belongs there and that this is part of them. So they're as odd as the park is. They're part of what makes up the vibe of the park. And there's only a handful that kind of want out. But then again, there's this draw. Like, if you lived there, David, I guarantee you'd be there all the time, because there's this weirdness, this allure, this odd energy. And it's almost like if you're a gambler and you're in a casino, right? You're walking down, you're just drawn, you go. That's what this place, do you know that this town is like made up of so few people, yet that parking lot is full. People go eat their lunch there every day. They just sit there. It's like they're getting something from this. They're feeding off of it, and they're becoming different in themselves because they know that they're becoming different, because the area has done that to them. But the only people they jive or get along with are these other people who now become like them. That's really what it's like. So if you go for your first time, you're like, whoa, this is kind of weird. Yeah. But as you live there and the more you see this and the more you're part of people, it's not like they don't know. The people there are part of it.
Intense. Right. Just what you described there could be a movie, right? Just
Oh, it's a movie within a movie.
within a movie.
Strapped in
Because I'm already, that's what I'm already in my mind. I'm painting the things like you could already tell your grandma's side of the story or the kid's side of the story, but the fact that the park or the area might suck people in.
But if you come in from, let me interrupt you here, Dave, because I do that a lot too. So, so being that we were outsiders, to us it was bizarre, right? So when we moved there and started experiencing these things, we were like, it was bizarre to us, so we started talking about it. But other people had already become part of it.
Yeah, and that's where I was leading with that. Like you guys were outsiders, but or even today, do you notice? Is there a type of person that's drawn to that energy, or is it all different types of people? Or you could say, oh, you could characterize somebody. Oh, I know they'll be drawn to that energy. Is it an artistic thing, a paranormal thing? Can anybody be drawn to it? Or
I would turn that over to Anthony and Rhiannon, because they're fresh to this.
Yeah.
But you can. I'll tell you one thing. Everybody wants to go at it. Everybody's looking for a fight. I mean, even Anthony had said to the cook at this restaurant, "Would you mind stop turning on the air conditioning? We're filming here." The guy lost it. It just was like, getting all rude. And it's, there's this, put it this way, if you can't stand up for yourself, you're going to get eaten for lunch down there,
Right.
So you got to have a big mouth. You got to speak your mind, and because there's this dark meanness, right? Would you say it's a dark type of mean?
Well, yeah. Well, I went down there for the first time, right? And you walk in, you come into the road, you get out of the car, you go up to the bridge, and you walk through that bridge. The whole atmosphere just changes in the place. Everything around you just changes, and then you start noticing things, as time goes on. Like you walk in the cornfield, and I had this gigantic orb shoot out behind my head and fly to the other side where there was an investigation.
I saw that, by the way. Yeah,
we've seen that with our eyes, and
it was like maybe this big. Yeah, and it just went right to the left of me. I mean, it was like a baseball, like a big baseball, and it went shooting by me. And then it got to the cornfield and took a 90-degree right turn, and then dove into the corn. I saw it with my own eyes.
It was crazy, and
we're talking corn that's 18 feet high.
Oh my God, the corn, because of the crop circle that was there from an incident that a craft landed there. The corn stalks, which everywhere else, anywhere they grow corn, at the time we were there, they're like 3 to 4 foot high.
Maybe 6.
The corn stalks there are 18 to 24 feet high.
Wow.
The pieces of corn grow 2.5 feet long.
Yeah. I mean, one little corn on the grill. Yeah. You'd be like, you'd have to cook it on the grill this way, right? Because it's like as long as your friggin' arm. I like corn like everybody else, but I'm not eating that,
Right.
You're looking at 2 sticks of butter just to friggin'
I'll take the radiation, please.
Yeah. I'm a 3-foot corn on the side of radiation. Yeah.
So you're saying size does matter, Thom. Size matters.
Well, it always has, and so I hang in there, but I still can't compete with some of these people. I know a lot of basketball players. I am like, I'm out. So, but I get the dove with corn because that's a telltale for sure, man. Like I said, we are not exaggerating. I mean, if anything, we're keeping it on a down low. There's things that, all right. So I'll tell you this. So I'm sorry, I'm taking over here. I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead, Thom.
But all right. So it's the box. It's called a REM. What's the REM? Red Pod box, right? So this is the weirdest thing too. So most of the activity typically is further down near this telephone pole. Now think about this too. Like I mentioned earlier, and I need to circle around to this because I do believe that there's that power grid that's in the area that loses power and the houses go down. No one knows why this draw, but there's quartz and there's gold in the quartz that's underground under the river, and there's also granite, I think. So there's a lot of energy being absorbed into the quartz, into the ground, and underneath the water there. But where the activity took place and where most of it was near the telephone pole. That telephone pole is tied to the grid. So that's where the energy, I think, is the strongest. And so that's where I've always felt the most uncomfortable. I mean, there's areas in there, you'll walk into this cornfield back in the day, not so much this time we were there, but there were these round circles in the ground where nothing was growing. And I walked in there with one of the managers for the WWE. She used to manage some of the, the wrestlers, and a few other people as well who were down there donating a bench, and they had the trucks. They were just everyday people. And we walked in there, and all our sneakers were glowing, our shirts were glowing. So they had a team come in there, and they were looking for different types of fluorescence that might have been in the dirt or whatever that could have caused this to happen. And so that we've got actually scientists looking into that. We've got people looking into the water, like what's going on. They found like these weird live type of, I don't know what you call it, right? In the water that they couldn't identify, and the water is very toxic, and so you've got toxic water, ground that makes your shoes and things illuminate, corn that grows 18 feet, a power grid over there, crystal underground, and then you got this telephone pole at the end of the road here, sort of, and so when we were there with the REM pod, we had moved it through the bridge and we had gone down the way here, and when we got to this area, which is the strongest area, you can feel it in your stomach. There's a dark vibe. Everybody gets edgy, uncomfortable. If some people get sick and vomit, it's that strong. Then all of a sudden, the REM
step
pod,
away from the lighted device on the ground, please.
That's the REM pod right there.
This thing went bananas for 10 minutes.
Wow, look at that.
It would not stop. Battery change.
We want to speak with you. Can you step away from the device, please?
And that's just 23 seconds out of like a 10-minute long video. Keep them up.
And so then, we were like, well, let's, to be, just to double check things, And like I said, there were 3 paranormal teams there with their equipment too. It wasn't like there was just one, just Anthony and I and a REM pod. I mean, there was a lot big teams there over these 3 days that we were there. And so we moved it back further. Now remember, when we went in that direction, there was no activity thus far until we got to this location. Right. And then we started to move it back further and further and further. And, Anthony was resetting it, make sure it's all good, doing, due diligence, make sure the batteries are good. Let's try it again. This has never acted quite like this before. And then it was quiet. And over time, it was like something followed us, and then it went off again. And then it went off. It would go green and everything, then it would slow down, then it would be blue and purple, and then it would kind of reset and then go off again. I mean, there was definitely something triggering this thing. So we did it again, and we took it further and further until we took it through the bridge. And then once we took it through the bridge, that's kind of later on, that's kind of where I got thrown. So we're thinking, is it possible that something attached itself and we took it to the other side of the bridge? There's the orb.
Wow, look at that. Look at that. Look at that.
And you can hear we could see that.
I was trying.
You can hear us say, holy, Play that again.
Going down like this. Oh shit! I just got a huge white orb that flew right through.
Right by my head.
Yeah.
Wow.
And look at it, takes a turn.
It turns on a 90.
It turned up.
And to play it one more time, if you don't mind, Dave. If you don't mind.
Yeah.
Corn down like this.
Look where it goes.
Oh shit!
Going left.
I just got a huge white orb that
look at that.
Right through
and then drops into the corn.
Just weird.
I think it actually started going.
It did. Later it did. It went. You're right. It went further.
Shit! I just got a huge white orb that flew right through.
You could see all the dust particles and everything. That's dust. The see-through stuff.
That's
this
unbelievable.
Object is something totally.
And you saw the REM pod going. So you got the REM pod going off. That corn is like 18 feet high, believe it or not. And you got the orbs flying by us. I get thrown. We got our paranormal teams filming all this stuff. Then there's lights in the sky.
Our camera guy quits.
The truck wouldn't start. This is all within like a 3-day period.
Everybody likes paranormal till you start seeing stuff, right? Then you're like, I'm out of here.
True. Very, very.
But it's
true.
but it's wild because I've seen orbs and things and tried to film them, I think last summer, and tried to upload them, and they were there in the film footage. But then when I uploaded it to YouTube, it was black. I couldn't see it. But to have that footage, that's undeniable that thing flies up and around and then down into the corner.
Well, I got more news for you too. I actually have photos of the orbs themselves in broad daylight hovering over cornfields. We actually filmed some of that, not filmed it live, but we had the pictures that were taken, and you can see they're probably the size of a basketball. And there's the corn. You can see how tall it is.
Yeah.
So,
hey, Anthony.
Let me finish what I'm saying here first. So the spheres that we saw were not just random over the cornfields. Under the orbs themselves became crop circles that actually got investigated by BLT research and were written up in the newspapers.
Wow.
So they got these crop circles that showed up, the orbs right above them, and there was a pilot named Nina who walked into the corn, the crop circle in the cornfield, and she was then tested for radiation sickness, right?
Yes.
Wow.
This is all within like an area that's maybe twice the size of a football field?
Yes, but Anthony, also tell them about the frogs.
Oh, so I decide that I'm going to go down into this cornfield like at 11 o'clock at night by myself. And I walk through, and all the corn's like there's this one spot where it's all just like laid down for no reason. It just won't grow. And I'm walking, and it's cold, and all these weird frogs start coming out of just nowhere. They're just hundreds of them. And they were pitch black with lime green stripes on them. And the only other place I've ever seen, like on TV, where these frogs, like the poison dart frog,
right?
That's exactly what these things look like, and they didn't believe me.
So like neon green, like bright neon green, like monster green, yeah.
Yeah, right. So the next night I dragged them to, and then I'm like, I'm telling you, there's these frogs in here. Rhiannon's like, would you shut up? There's no frogs in here. As we're walking back, they start jumping out from everywhere. And she's like, yeah, you're right.
He's like, I told you. You didn't believe me.
I don't know where they came from because they're not indigenous.
We're talking like it was like an infested area with frogs. I mean, you walk, chances are you step on one. They're like that big, and they're like, bum, 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 you're all over. So you got this tall corn, you're looking up to see the corn, and then you got orbs flying by, weird freaking frogs. You know what I mean? It was just
something like from the Exorcist.
Man, it was crazy, man.
Unbelievable.
You can't make it up. It's ridiculous. And then people were like, oh my God, they were leaving, they were, throwing up, and and the mosquitoes all of a sudden, like, they were right. So my God, yeah. So you got orbs and tall corn and spheres and crop circles and friggin' weird little frogs, and then a swarm of mosquitoes. I'm getting thrown, and people are leaving and crapping their pants, and literally, the guy crapped his pants. Well, oh Jesus, right? So it was just like one thing after another, and we get back to where we're staying. We're staying at my friend's house. And it's just like, you get there and you're almost speechless. It's like so, and all I could say was like, I told you, right?
It drained our energy. Like,
we were exhausted. We all became edgy, and we all became like them.
We were becoming like them. And
that's a really good way to word it, though. We were, right? Because that was like what we experienced personally. Not by everybody, that David was cool and Dustin was cool, a few people, but for the most part, after 3 days, we were all super edgy. It took us like 3 or 4 days to cool down. I mean,
you become part of it almost. It's like in The Shining, where
Dave,
The Shining
gets a hold of you, man.
Like in The Shining. In The Shining, where the bartender says to Jack Nicholson, "You've always been the caretaker." Like you start turning into the place almost, right? Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Man,
I was the only one who was really mellow the whole time.
I don't. Tell us the truth, Rhiannon.
Yeah.
How come nobody's supposed to be quiet on the set?
Yeah,
Quiet on the set.
Ryan on the set.
Get the frogs out of here.
we had an SLS camera there, Salty Explorer. One of the paranormal teams had it there, and it's one of those stick figure like Xbox 360 Connect systems that they use to track things that aren't there. And I think it makes a lot of mistakes. I think the technology is fairly iffy, but it's cool. Like when you get a figure there and like maybe 4 or 5 different devices hit on it, then okay. But just to use that as your primary thing, I wouldn't recommend just using the SLS as a primary. You know, maybe a secondary or a third, even backup, something like that.
So we had the truck that lost power. Truck wouldn't start.
Yeah, and the guy, it was like a new truck, and he just drove 3 hours to the park, and he's like, "Oh my god!" He was an actor from California. He's like, "Oh my god!"
Yeah. The guy's car dies all at the same time.
Unreal. So, man, a million questions. The thing that I like though, is when we have people on and everybody tells different stories, but there's common denominators in there. One of yours that we had someone on not too long ago that talked about the same thing, talking through the box. You know, the device where it was saying your names in particular, and that. Mm-hmm. Again, we had someone on not too long ago saying that same thing. Things that. You know, you don't have a common name that, you know, that someone's just messing around saying that, you know, and so, and the other thing that hit me was the soil. We had someone on talking about the soil and the energy and how everything's connected. And maybe that's had something to do with that super corn, you know, the 18-foot corn had something to do with the soil, the energy in the soil. I like piecing together consistencies because it not that we need to prove things, but it's wild how similar people from all over the world are telling the same stories, right?
You're trying to make sense of it, and it's hard because, you know, after what happened, our heads are just we're spinning, trying to make sense and rationalize this without sounding like a crazy person.
All right, so now I have to break down to 500 questions I have in the time that we have left. But here's one question that I have. So, all right, so you're whatever part done with filming the documentary, would you say you're half done or you're who knows?
I'd say that on the location footage, I think we could, if we're going to go up there, might as well shoot a lot of it again because you know, we had when Rhiannon and Anthony came out for the very first time, this was new to them. They didn't expect all this. So now they know what to expect and where that activity is really stemming from for the most part. And I think they're going to go in with a renewed vigor, and there's going to be, let's focus over here. So I think the first one we can assume we can use some of it, but at the same time, now I think we're going to be able to go in with a more focused attack, if you will.
Right.
And also there's more that I didn't tell you. This case went before the United Nations in support of General Assembly 33426 at the UN. And oddly enough, right after my father was killed on the anniversary of that deal, if you will, or that you know, symposium, our lawyer was also killed 6 months after my father. And I just did a psychic thing today for the first time in my life, right? She took me to one here, you know, we're in St. Augustine, and, you know, this is a pretty good area for it. And oddly enough, this woman actually nailed a couple of things and was telling me things that I was also shocked to hear. So, shocked to hear that. So I actually, for someone who was pretty skeptical for a long time, the last couple of months has really made me think too, because to circle back to the question about the filming, I think we all went in thinking, okay, UFO, United Nations, my dad, you know, he had information about the, you know, the space race and weapons that were probably being made at the same time, which there were. So we're going in thinking we're going to focus on A, but we got hit with B, C, D, E, and F. So to say, are we half done? Well, we could take that footage and do something with it, or we could just go back and go, let's broaden the spectrum here and let's find out what's really happening. I think that's where we're going.
We have unfinished business for sure.
Yeah, we more or less got great footage when we were down there, but like Thom said, to go back again for another week and broaden your horizons on the stories.
Yeah, for sure.
Times better. You know why? Because the audience deserves it. That's
absolutely.
This is going to be incredible. I can't wait, however long it takes. But here's another question. I have so many now.
Okay.
You guys are amazing guests.
Hold on,
Here's
I'll put the meter on.
Yeah, 1 minute. That's it. Just put on the meter. We'll be right there. But when you went in filming this, did you expect the paranormal activity as well?
No.
No.
That's just it.
So you guys were completely surprised by the.
We were going for all UFO related content because that is what I remember it for. That's it's the UFO park, but there's so much more.
This, man, I brought, like I always do, I brought FLIR cameras. I brought color night vision cameras. And the shit that we caught on those systems, thank God we had them.
Yeah.
I can't even, we would need a whole nother hour just to tell you.
We didn't hang out there like all day. Like,
no.
We went for 3 or 4 hours here. Put it this way. Everyone that was there by the end of the night was all in this parking lot staring at the activity in the sky that was right overhead. And then there was this frequency that a lot of people kind of hear. It's like a heartbeat. And so we had this guy, Rob, reproduce that. It was 285 hertz, I believe, and played it through this, huge 1100 watt freaking speaker there. And it was resonated something, and activity actually showed up. I mean, it was like, okay, this is just too much. And everybody was in the parking lot looking at it. Even Bill from KGRA Radio was there filming it.
14, 15 of us filmed the sky while this infrasound's going on. Clear sky. Turned bright red. Then turned green, blues and purples. And we were looking for fireworks, like somebody shooting fireworks, and we didn't see nothing off in the distance. But this was like directly above. It was
were these little circle frigging red and green, almost like little,
it would fly through and then just
those orb type things. And then we saw what looked similar to a Starlink type of thing, but it wasn't going through the air. It was actually coming out of the ground.
Ground up.
Wow.
And we got a picture of that too. And Starlink hadn't launched.
Yeah.
Anthony's got a picture of that too.
Yeah.
Christy says, I think it's the right thing to do to return, definitely, and see what else you can encounter. You guys got this. And Saldi says, I wanted to film, but I chickened out. She wasn't feeling good. And
did she go there? Was she there?
I don't know. I don't know what he was filming, but I think something paranormal, UFO. Anyway.
Okay.
But
Dave, you gotta come meet us there, man, and come hang out.
Yeah. Man, this is incredible. I mean, there's so many layers. You were right about it. But between the front, that's the other thing. Have you ever, the sky that you guys were filming, had you seen it like that before, Thom?
I don't live anywhere near it. So I live like 1,000 miles away.
Yeah. So you haven't seen, none of you guys had seen that sort of sky, but other people were around taping it too. They were videotaping it.
Oh no, we all saw it when we were there.
That's what I mean.
I had never seen it before that.
That's what I mean. Yeah.
Yeah. And you're right. That's what makes us so interesting now. That it's multi-layered, and we didn't realize that until we went.
But we all experienced the same thing. This is the interesting part.
like 50 of us. About 50 of us.
One person with one testimonial, we all simultaneously experienced these things at the same time.
And like I said, even Zach Bagan's team, I'm sorry, go ahead, buddy.
There was strangers there just visiting the park too. That was
right. Yeah, there were people just visiting that were like, oh my God. And so there was probably 50, 60 people? 50 or 60 people experiencing this in all had front row seats. This wasn't like, I think I saw this. No, it was like everyone had a front row seat. Yeah. And it was powerful, and it was everywhere.
I'm thinking that there's no way this could be one movie, right? This has to be multiple things.
Yeah.
And also like a 5-part series.
Yeah. And almost, because then almost the name's got to have like addendums in it, because there's all this unexpected stuff almost, right?
Yeah.
It's crazy. Wow.
This place blows Skinwalker Ranch right out of the way.
Actually, the pizza house down the road actually now has an Encounter Pizza after the activity in the park.
Good pie, too.
Yeah, it was not bad. We had one. So expensive, but it was good.
Just unbelievable. And you got some of it. We got to see some of the, the orbs and stuff.
Yeah.
and the meter going off here tonight, guys. Just incredible stuff.
And by the way, too, that, like I said, this isn't just, again, hearsay. This happened back in the 60s. It went out on Channel 4. I want to just repeat this. It went out on Channel 4 News in New York City. And the Berkshire, this is how, like I said, I know I'm being redundant, but remember I mentioned that so many people there are like part of it.
Yeah.
So the newspaper, the Berkshire Eagle, which is the second largest paper to the Boston Globe, gave Rhiannon and I a licensing agreement to use the original news articles that were printed in the 60s in our film.
Wow.
Because they know that this is a real thing, and they weren't like embarrassed about it or like, no, here, do your thing.
They loved it. And we even got on record, Congressman Tim Burchett, he's part of the documentary as well.
Yeah.
Oh, I remember hearing you guys say that. That's right.
Yeah.
I remember being
so we had lunch with him and
we invited him to come to the park to experience
so he chose to, do StreamYard.
Yeah, he was like, I don't know. I saw those orbs and heard about the frogs.
Yeah, but he did say he might. He did say that he might. So.
He told me to contact his assistant.
Yeah, so I got his cell phone number, so that's kind of cool.
So the paper still named the same thing, and you guys already got a hold of those articles that you could use?
Yeah, we do. Wow. They're on my website.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
All right, tell us your website one more time, Thom. You guys got to come back. All right.
Sure.
I say that because I haven't even gotten to really one question yet, and we're already at an hour. And out of respect,
all right. Well, the website, if you want to see some of the articles and some of the behind the scenes, it's ufopark.org. So ufopark.org.
ufopark.org. Okay.
Yeah, and if you go to the front page, you'll see all the testimonials and the letters and the induction papers where we're inducted into history, archived officially. And there you go. And yeah, I was there too, but of course I'm cut out of that picture. But it's yeah. But go to ufopark.org and you can see all the original articles and that kind of thing as well.
Yeah.
What happened? Where's Anthony?
I don't know. I think Anthony, he accidentally left the building. I don't know.
Elvis has left the building.
Yeah, he'll be back. Maybe he'll be back to wrap it up. But so also, Thom, one more time to touch on UFO Expo TV, which is I think your new website. That's going to be your
it's our new podcast.
New podcast. Okay.
Yeah. So UFO Expo, we were holding. Rhiannon and I were. There he is. There he is. I thought it was something I said because it's really possible. Forget about it. Anthony.
Exactly.
Yeah. So New Yorkers. So UFO Expo started. So real quick, I started a company called Paraween. I was holding paranormal conferences in Salem, Massachusetts, and Paraween became pretty big. But I wanted to do something different. I wanted to have like a UFO flavor to it. So I opened up and I started UFO Expo, which was a spinoff of Paraween. And so it got adopted by Roswell. So we were working with the attorneys of Roswell, the city of Roswell, the Roswell Museum. And they support me anyway. They support the park because the Roswell Research Library worked with the state of Massachusetts or the Commonwealth of Massachusetts in their investigating of our case because I needed source documents to rule on to make this a historical event. So after it was inducted into state, of course, I came back and they let me and Rhiannon put together a UFO Expo, which was a UFO festival in the city. And so then we picked up one in North Carolina, which Anthony also came to. And now we've picked up another one in Puerto Rico and
Coral Castle
in Miami.
We're actually going to have that at a historical landmark.
So we're now using our podcast, if you will, to make people aware where we're going to be, communicate with our friends, see who's, best fitted for this particular conference. And so, our first show, if I can boast here a little bit, we're going to have, let's ask your listeners, does anyone know who Warren Oates is? Does anyone remember Sergeant Hulka from the movie Stripes? You remember Stripes with John Candy?
And Bill Murray, right? Bill Murray, yeah.
Yeah. Well, Sergeant Hulka is Warren Oates, and Warren Oates actually had UFO sightings, some in San Antonio and some in Joshua Tree. And so he's long gone, but his daughter, Tori Oates, is a long-time friend of mine.
Yes,
And she actually not only is coming on our show to talk about her late father and the UFO sightings, but Tori's had some herself. And Tori was also an assistant production manager for the film. Yeah, right. You know what it is, Matrix Reloaded. So,
wow. All right.
so that's going to be our first show. We're going to have Tori Oates, who has worked on Matrix Reloaded, and talk about her father's UFO sightings and her sightings and the cattle mutilations that she witnessed. And so it's going to be featured around War Notes, the actor. But moving forward, we've got the guitar player from Autograph, Jimmy Bell, who played with Ozzy Osbourne and was on the album with Joan Jett and Michael J. Fox, Light of Day.
Yeah, Light
And
of Day.
so I'm good friends with Rita King, the daughter of B.B. King, and the family of Steve Ray Vaughan. So we're going to be doing more of a celebrity-flavored UFO event, and then we're going to see where the interest is and see if we can't start incorporating them into our UFO conferences.
Wow, incredible. Oh,
and
man.
Anthony's part of it. So
You got me sidetracked with a couple of things, but I loved Autograph. I loved Autograph back in the day. Yeah, turn up the radio. Yeah,
man, you remember. So Jimmy Bell, he has started with Bell Attack. He actually played with Ozzy. He came in second to Zakk Wylde, and he was with Joan Jett for a while. He was, Jimmy Bell's a shredder. You know, I grew up with Jimmy. Jimmy and I, we hung out. We drank together. As kids. Yeah.
Wow.
And now Thom drinks with everybody.
Yes, that's a Jimmy.
Yeah, that's good.
I have a drinking problem. That's anyone.
Nah, it's just you got too many friends, Thom. That's all. You got too many friends.
I've only got a couple good ones. Yeah, and they're all here with me tonight. So
with his Chuck E. Cheese cup.
Yeah, Chuck E. I need a drink, man. I'm going on the air. So like, this is all I got.
That
so
dirty
I'm
rat.
going, yeah, man. I love pizza. Our kids love pizza. Yeah, single dad.
That dirty rat, Chuck E. Cheese. We talked about that before.
I did. As a single dad, I used to bring my son to Chuck E. Cheese's all the time. It was it's crazy. What a day I'm having.
Now you have to borrow my kid to go.
Yeah. So, Dave, I'm sure we're running over, right?
I'm running over, but I really want to thank you guys for being here. Awesome. You got to come back because I got so many more questions.
Anytime.
And then you guys can go one by one and just plug your stuff, and then I'll run the outro. But thank you. Thanks, Chat. Thanks, Mods.
Thank you.
Great
Thanks,
show,
Dave.
you guys. Thank
Bye, guys.
Good night, Chat. Take care. Thank you.
Everyone.
Any day now. All right, there we go. All right, guys. Thank you.